What's up everybody, and thank you for joining me for another video. My name is Whack4863, but you can call me Whack. I have sorcery in my pocket, and when I say that, I really mean I have the ability to go back and forth between being corrupted and uncorrupted on my character. So I want to show you how you can play the game in a way that you don't have to corrupt your perks and keep your corruption the entire time and still engage in all of the sorcery that's available. So I'm just going to show you my attributes. You don't need to look at this really other than to see that I don't have any corrupted perks or attributes in this build. Now, if you're at your base, one of the best ways to gain corruption is to just do a soul drain on the sacrificial stone. So if we interact with that, it's actually going to give me 50% corruption. Now, you could do this if you're at your base, but what about when you're out and about and you want to engage in sorcery? How do you gain that much corruption in a very little time? So there you can see I have heavy corruption from engaging in that soul drain with the sacrificial stone. Another way to gain corruption is to actually use the Transpiratory Stone. I believe this is actually broken on single player or solo player or just my game because it actually isn't giving me corruption in solo. However, it is giving me corruption on the server that I play on, so it will give you a small amount of corruption when you use it. So let's jump into the different armors that are going to give you 50% corruption, and that's what we're looking for in this video. What can I put on or use that's going to instantaneously give me 50% corruption? So any of the abyssal armor will give you 50% corruption. If I equip that, you can see I instantly go to 50% corruption. The other item that you can use is the Black Feather Helm. This is a legendary item that drops in the unnamed city when you're killing the bosses there. And then into the weapons that you can get on the exiled lands. So you have the Abyssal Bow and the Abyssal Maul. Equipping either one of these will give you 50% corruption. So if I equip the bow, you can see I get 50% corruption. If I equip the maul, you can see I get 50% corruption. Now the great thing about both the Abyssal Maul and the Abyssal Bow is that they are very light. They weigh 0.10 in weight for each of them. So if you wanted to carry something around to give you instant corruption that was very light, either one of these is a good choice. However, on a downside, if you're not actually using them to fight, they only have a 1 hour timer before they will expire. The same thing is to be said about the abyssal armor. All of that only has a 1 hour timer before it expires. Now let's jump into some other weapons that are going to give you a lot of corruption and don't have an expiration timer. Additionally, both of these weapons are only going to give you 40% corruption. It is not a full 50%. That is the Blackheart Blade and the Blackheart Hammer. Now I chose both of these because these are recipes that you can actually learn in the Warmaker dungeon, and you don't have to worry about getting some legendary drop. Now there are legendary versions of both of these, but we're not hunting those down or searching for those because they have less damage, they have the same function, and they are going to be RNG. So you really just need to go and get this recipe, and I'll show you where to get that a little bit later on in the video. So if we equip the Blackheart Blade and we give it a moment, it will kick in with 40% corruption. So you actually end up with more hit points using the Blackheart Blade or the Blackheart Hammer instead of using the other items that I've showed you so far in this video. Now let's look at what we can get in the Isle of Sipta. The actual only thing that I know of that is going to give you this kind of corruption in the Isle of Sipta is the Void Forge Sword. So if I equip the Void Forge Sword, you can see that gives me an instant 40% corruption as well. Now let's talk about items that are going to reduce or remove corruption from your character. One of those things on the exiled lands is going to be the Champion's Leggings. If I equip that, it will start to remove a small amount of corruption over time. However, you're probably not going to want to wait around for this to cure that corruption because it is a very slow process. It's actually only going to cure 2 points of corruption every 30 seconds. The other option for the Isle of Sipta would be the Sigil of the Outsider. This says that it removes corruption from the soul. So if we equip that, we'll actually be able to see if it works the same as the Champion Leggings. Now the Sigil does work a little bit faster than the Champion Leggings. It actually cures every 20 seconds for 2 points of corruption. Now if for some reason you happen to have the Leggings of the Champion and the Sigil at the same time, it will reduce your corruption even faster, as the removal of corruption stacks on top of each other for these two items. Now I went ahead and removed my bracelet so that I no longer have the Sigil active. Now another way to gain corruption is with the Corrupting Brew. You can see that right here. However, I don't recommend this. It takes a lot of Corrupting Brews to gain enough corruption to use all the sorcery. It's 30 Corrupting Brews in order to get to heavy corruption. You can see after 10 I have light corruption, after another 10 I will have medium corruption, and then it takes about 12 to make it all the way to 40%. So there is another 10 and it's still medium corruption, and I go 1 and 2 more, and that gives me heavy corruption. So that is a lot of Corrupting Brews in order to gain the same amount of corruption as getting the Blackheart sword or hammer. However, for curing corruption, the Cleansing Brew is a great way to go. I'm going to use a total of 8 of these to remove the 40% corruption. If you have 50% corruption, it is going to require you to use 10. Now let me show you where to get all the things that I've shown you in this video. We'll start with the Corrupting and Cleansing Brews. This is the recipe for the Cleansing Brew. It is going to take the Yellow Lotus and the Herbal Tea to make a Cleansing Brew. We can see that recipe right here. If we want the Corrupting Brew, this is the recipe here. It is going to take you a Purified Water, Demon Blood, and Yellow Lotus to make the Corrupting Brew. The Corrupting Brew is part of the Specialist Cooking 1. Where you're going to want to come to is the summoning place. It is right here on the map. You want to run in and run to the left side, come all the way up these stairs here, and it is a book that's laying on the ground right in front of this tent. Interact with that. That is going to teach you a Specialist Cooking 6 and 1. Moving on to where you learn the Cleansing Brew, we are way up here in the Mounds of the Dead. You can see we're at this hut right here. So you would run in through here, run across the bridge, and into this hut here. This hut has a single enemy in it, and the book is here on the ground. That's going to be Specialist Cooking 3. That's going to teach you Herbal Tea as well as the Cleansing Brew. Lastly, you are going to come to Kale's Stronghold and do the Warmaker dungeon. That is right here on the map. And once you've defeated him or not defeated him, you can just run up and interact with both of these tablets. The one on the right is the one that is going to teach you the Grandmaster weapons. That is going to teach you the Blackheart blade as well as the Blackheart hammer. Both of those will give you the 40% corruption. Now, if you want to get your hands on the Corrupting Brew or the Cleansing Brew in the Isle of Sipta, the best way is to drag in the surges. So for the Corrupting Brew, you're going to do Surges of the South, because the different Defari that come with those surges do carry that recipe. If you want to get the Cleansing Brew recipe, you're going to do Surges of the North, and the Forgotten Tribe surges do carry that recipe. For the Void Forge sword, you are going to come to the middle of the map on Sipta and enter the tower. Here you have different pedestals that you can interact with to gain different armor and weapon recipes. It doesn't matter which one of these you interact with, you just need to interact with it with fragments of power in your inventory and trade those in for different recipes until you get the Void Forge sword. And there it is, the Void Forge sword right there. That's the one that you want in order to be able to gain instant corruption. For the Sigil of the Outsiders, the one that's going to remove corruption from your character, that is going to be in the Isle of Sipta towards the north, and you are going to get that from the Asylum of the Outsiders. Now, Pocket Sorcery is great for harvesting builds where you don't want to be fully corrupted until you're using sorcery to call in the mass call. So this would be basically what it would be like. You would corrupt yourself to the level that you need to be in order to use the Mass Call. You would then switch over and use sorcery right away to use Mass Call and get the harvesting of resources. And that really is why I would use Pocket Sorcery. It's to be able to switch back and forth between a build that I'm using for another reason, and then be able to quickly switch and use Sorcery and go back to my normal build shortly after that. And I want to know in the comment section below, what do you think about Pocket Sorcery? What do you think about switching between being corrupted and not being corrupted very quickly, both in the Exiled Lands and the Isle of Sipta? I'd like to thank all my YouTube members for your continued support. Y'all are absolute legends. If you'd like to become a legend, there's a button that says join on this page. Click that for details. There's 2 videos on the screen. Click one of those to watch next, and I'll meet you over there.